Welcome to the Beyond Barriers podcast. If you're an ambitious woman who wants to advance in leadership, then this podcast is for you. This podcast is co-hosted by Nikki Barua, digital innovator, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and Monica Marquez, senior corporate leader, ex-Googler, and diversity expert. From inspiring stories to cutting-edge strategies, you'll learn how to develop the skill set, mindset, and tool set to get future-ready fast and accelerate your success.
Hi, I'm Nikki Barua, your host for today's episode. We all have a superpower, but we don't always know what it is or how to use it, or sometimes even when to use it. But when you get this right and learn to harness your superpower, your impact becomes exponential. Meet Fran Maier, serial entrepreneur known for growing iconic businesses like TRUSTe and Match.com. Fran shares how her superpower as a brand builder made her such a huge success and helped her create global impact. Fran is now the CEO of BabyQuip, and her superpower as a brand builder, yet again, has already made the company the leading baby gear rental service for traveling families. Fran is a legendary entrepreneur and has won numerous awards and accolades. She was honored by the Stanford Graduate School of Business with the Jerry I. Porras Latino Leadership Award, named one of the 100 most influential women in technology by Hot Topics. Also, San Francisco Business Times named Fran among the 150 most influential women in Bay Area business, and AlwaysOn named her among the top 25 women in tech to watch in Silicon Valley. In this episode, Fran shares why it's important to know your strengths and take ownership of what's in your control. She also reveals the lessons she has learned in her career and the principles she follows as a leader. Fran is applying all of these principles as she leads BabyQuip in changing lives and improving the way families travel. Visit I'mBeyondBarriers.com, where you'll find show notes and links to all the resources in this episode, including the best way to get in touch with Fran. Hi, Fran. Welcome to the Beyond Barriers podcast. We're so thrilled to have you.
Hi, Nikki. I'm thrilled to be here as well.
Awesome. Well, our audience is going to really enjoy this episode because you are a legend who's done so many incredible things.
Awesome.
And I'm sure they're going to want to know more about how you did it and how you got there. But let's dive right in. And I want to start with this question of, given all the amazing things you've done that frankly have changed lives around the world, how would you describe your superpower?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I think I like to build brands, impactful brands. And early in my career after business school, I worked at Clorox, the product company. And I really grew an appreciation of how important it is to position a brand, to think about brand values, to get those brand values out. And so when I think about my career, I'm really proud, obviously, of Match.com, which is still one of the leading brands. TRUSTe, which is an internet privacy symbol that people see all over, which is also a leading brand. And now BabyQuip in just, 4 years, really. We're leading in the marketplace. So I really love brands. I think that's probably my superpower.
And what an incredible superpower, because those are legendary brands. So I'm curious, the chicken and egg thing, have you started with the concept or a vision of, how it manifests? Walk us through a little bit about, any of those examples and how it came together.
Well, I'll tell you the secret. I didn't start any of these companies. Okay.
Wow.
So Match.com, I was invited to, I was like employee number 4 or 5. And it was part of a company called Electric Classifieds. And I was in charge of Match.com from the beginning. But we already had the name. And there was an idea of getting people together for romance on the internet. TRUSTe was already out there, but it was going through the .com bust, and I came in to kind of strengthen it and turn it around. And BabyQuip actually was called Babyerge. I did change the brand name to BabyQuip, and I did found it, but it was with somebody else who had started the baby gear business in the whole marketplace model. So, I do call myself a serial entrepreneur. I've done 5 different startups, but I'm not embarrassed to say that I kind of came in and helped scale and grow these brands. I didn't necessarily start the idea, but I do think there is maybe a superpower in identifying what can be, where my skill set might really make a difference.
Absolutely, because I've often said, if all it took was an idea, you'd have 7 billion entrepreneurs. But an idea is just the beginning. It's all about how you scale and grow it and turn it into movement, which you've done incredibly well.
Everybody likes to know about the Match.com thing. So should I?
Yeah, please tell us more about that story.
So Match this was 1994. So very early internet. And if I could do it all over again, I wish we were a little bit later. Okay. And the idea.
And why is that?
Because we didn't know how ahead of the curve that we really were. There were no real metrics because it was so early. I'll jump. So 1994, the idea was to get classified advertising from newspapers onto the internet. But Match.com for this company, Electric Classified, was going to be the proof of concept. And early on, we decided we wanted to focus on women. And we felt if we focused on women, then the men would follow. And so it meant that we had to sort of position it just the right way. So back in the 90s, and you were probably a child, the way the way personals would happen in newspapers were that people would call a 900 number and get charged.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sleazy because newspapers or tricksters would put in ads like, I'm interested in a gangbang. And that would generate lots of phone calls, but not really any true romance. So what we wanted to do was really position Match.com as a clean, well-lit, safe place. In fact, our brand values were safe, anonymous, and fun. Which anonymity was really important back then, as you can imagine. And attracting women wasn't just, having colors and things like that, but really thinking about what do they want. And so, for example, one time the engineer came in and said, well, what are the weight ranges we're going to have for people? And I was like, we're not going to ask about weight. We're going to maybe do body type. Now, this is back when we had 5 or 6 questions that people matched on, and there weren't even photos. So these physical appearance things were really kind of important. The other thing is I had worked at AAA right prior to coming to Match.com, and we instituted a membership model rather than a transactional model. So joining the Match.com membership was important. And then finally, we called it online matchmaking, not online personals. We really want, or now it's really called online dating. But the whole idea was to get away from that whole sleazy personals category.
Right. So, I love the brand values because it really speaks to exactly what that ideal customer profile needs are and what their struggles are. How did that, were there instances where there were business decisions you had to make that were perhaps in conflict with that? And how did you navigate through that?
Yeah, no, we really came up with those values and other rules of engagement as a team. So, for example, when we first started to get photos, we really felt that we want, again, for it to be a positive, clean, well-lit place. And
then how do you translate with anonymous then?
Well, back then it was really important to have an anonymity. I mean, now people are willing to own up to it. But those were the values that we talked to people about. We talked to our target. We talked to others who might want to partner with us. And we knew we just really had to kind of be fairly clean. So in our men seeking women, women seeking men thing, we did not put nude photos or allow very lascivious. Mm-hmm. Contrary, though, we also looked at the community and what they wanted. And the Men Seeking Men, for example, was a little bit more comfortable with a little bit more risque photos. So we drew, and also a little bit more sexually oriented talk. And that was fine because that was that community. Mm-hmm. So we both developed our brand values, but over time, we also listened to what our community wanted and adjusted accordingly.
How did the company internal culture evolve and align with the brand values? How did you design the culture?
It was interesting, and I would not say it was a good culture. Match.com, like I said earlier, was a proof of concept. And after some management changes and investment and board changes, most of the management team was focused on trying to get newspapers to use the platform for their classified advertising. And frankly, it didn't work. And Match was actually starved of funds, starved for marketing, starved for engineers, even though we were generating really good income and we're the brand leader. Mm-hmm. But because to your question of why was it bad to be so early, our investors still thought of Match.com as potentially being sleazy. And they felt that they had this really big opportunity with newspapers. I'll just let you know that this is before Craigslist or eBay. And once those two emerged, the opportunity really did not come for the rest of the company. Also, newspapers were very slow to change to go from offline to online. Mm-hmm. So it was a difficult culture and one that I would never want to do again. In the end, Match was sold for less than $8 million to Sendin. A year later, they sold it to Barry Diller, Ticketmaster, and what became ISC for $70 million. And now the company, I think, has a capitalization of $5 billion. Wow. So it was a difficult situation. I think my team, we were very consistent with what we were doing and what we stood for. And, it was fun. We started to get more data as it went on, and we realized that women were very much looking for long-term partners at about 28. Mm-hmm. The men were looking for long-term partners closer to 30, 32. Mm-hmm. We saw that a lot of people were dating more than they had before. They told us that they were dating more and that they weren't settling. They were really looking for the right person. And they loved that Match.com gave them that opportunity.
What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned in the Match.com experience and in that both as a leader as well as a entrepreneur in that journey that were really founding principles in some ways moving forward?
Yeah, well, I think I really like the marketplace model. And that's what we're doing with BabyQuip because it's really fun to empower both sides of a marketplace. I also really saw the strength of partnerships. So early in Match.com days, we would have partnerships with some of these names are very old, like Alta Vista or Women.com, where I went to work for afterwards. And we would create private labeled Match.com for these different environments, but the database and the overall experience was the same. And that really helped us grow very quickly. I think also, and this relates to the brand value, we won the first Internet Valentine's Day. Okay, so back in 1995, we had just launched, we were just free. We were able to win the first, get all the press for the first Valentine's Day on the internet. That was kind of exciting. I think from a leadership standpoint, I have a regret that I should have taken over Match.com when Electric Classifieds wanted to sell it. I didn't have enough confidence. I didn't have enough support. And I didn't let myself be vulnerable to ask for help. Okay. And these are lessons I often share with other female entrepreneurs. And probably the number one thing is be confident. I mean, there was no reason why I shouldn't have done that. Mm. And it would have worked out for me, I think, quite nicely. And fortunately, I had a do-over. So later in my career, I took TRUSTe, which was a nonprofit, turned it into a for-profit, and raised some money and got what I deserved with that, right? Mm-hmm. But with Match, I kind of let it go and I didn't fight for it. In part, though, there were a lot of things. I was a young mom. Mm-hmm. I was very tired. The culture was sort of beating me down. And I didn't go out and ask for help. I believe had I gone back to maybe a group of friends or mentors or people at Stanford Business School where I had attended, somebody would have said, Fran, take this over. You can do it. You can raise the money. Take it to the next stage. Mm-hmm. And it didn't happen. But I learned that. And the next time I had an opportunity, I took care of it. And it worked out well for me. It's great if you could have a do-over. You don't always.
That's true. Yeah, what you describe in terms of the opportunity that you rightfully deserve, but not being able to step into that because of fears and limiting beliefs or lack of confidence, it's something that so many women, both in the workplace as well as entrepreneurs, often struggle with. And I know I've personally been in that situation as in my previous businesses as well, where I've not raised fast enough or not asked for help. Thinking back to that time and when you were faced with that decision, you said you didn't have the confidence. Specifically, what held you back? What was the limiting belief?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just didn't think somebody was going to give me some money. And I didn't feel like I had support at home. And I would say that was part of it too. And at the time, I had two very young children who are now grown men. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And also, like I said earlier, we didn't know that we were one of the only companies really generating money and growing. We didn't know that social networks and the explosiveness once the chain wheel gets going. I mean, we were there. We were number one. We were, and Match has never given up that position. So, now it's interesting because in a lot of ways, BabyQuip reminds me of Match because we're early stage, we're a marketplace, sort of in the family space. Mm-hmm. Now the resources are so incredible. For female founders, there are so many organizations. There are Facebook groups. There are organizations like what you do. Mm-hmm. There are accelerators that focus on women. There's accelerators. Back when we were doing Match, there were no accelerators.
Right. That's right. So, so as someone who has repeatedly pioneered innovative new ventures and new markets, what would you say are some of the pros and cons of being early to market?
Well, the biggest pros usually are you're able to establish a beachhead, a brand, following. I think Match, it was so early, but so early in the internet, right? So I think being early to a market and seeing an opportunity, one of the things that I saw with BabyQuip was that prior to BabyQuip, I was an Airbnb superhost. I still am, actually. And when you see changes like this, and there's been so many, even in the just last 5 to 20 years, everything from, the rise of social networks, mobile apps. But I looked at Airbnb and was thinking, this is going to have a big impact. A lot of people not only are traveling this way, but are making extra money this way. Mm-hmm. What are other businesses that are going to emerge that use this model or even are in the travel space?
Right.
And when I saw BabyQuip in Santa Fe, which is really actually my hometown, and that it was doing a really good business in a relatively small town, I thought there big opportunity for this to go national and to build a brand that people can trust with, baby gear, car seats and strollers and cribs for their babies, toys too.
That brings us right to BabyQuip. So let's dive right into that. For our audience that may not be familiar with BabyQuip, tell us about it and what it does for its community.
Yeah, so BabyQuip is a marketplace. We deliver safe, clean gear to traveling families for their babies, everything from cribs to strollers, car seats, toys, all kinds of things. And we do it by leveraging a network of independent providers. These are mostly moms. We call them quality providers. We have 650 of them across the US and Canada. Mm-hmm. And they own the baby gear. They deliver it, clean it, set it up, pick it up. And they make a really nice side hustle. Pre-pandemic, on average, they were making $500 or more per month.
Wow.
Some were making thousands.
Wow.
What I love about it is we are helping families have a better vacation.
Yes.
Because most parents know if the baby sleeps well, everybody's going to be happy. I have a couple of investors who invested in BabyQuip because they're parents of young children, and they almost get teary-eyed when they tell me how important it was when they arrived to their vacation or the grandparents' house or parents' house, and everything was set up, that it made such a big difference to them. So I love the impact that we have with families. I also love the impact that we have with our network of providers. Like I said, they're mostly moms. Mm-hmm. So they know what other families want. They really strive to go above and beyond. And I have countless stories of, family, let's say with a disabled child, will ask, hey, can you get a shower or chair set up? And they'll go and they'll do it, And they get a lot of gratification from serving the families, building a business, running a business. And we have a lot of fun with them too. And we're teaching them how to be entrepreneurs.
Right.
So recently we taught them all how to set up their Google My Business. And that's good stuff.
Yeah. That's fantastic. What a powerful model. And, the best businesses are the ones that take massive friction out of the market and create value for everyone involved. And, when I think about BabyQuip, first visual that comes to mind is a young family trying to board a plane with all their gear and trying to juggle the infant and the toddler and, all of that stuff. And just not just them, but all the other passengers and everyone else being equally mortified at that hustle. So like being able to create this peaceful, fun experience and at the same time create opportunities for moms everywhere. That's really incredible. So I want to go back to perhaps a little bit about the early stages of BabyQuip. So you said, BabyQuip was, originally out of Santa Fe, and how did you come across it, and at what stage was it? Because you obviously saw the global potential for this. But, tell us a little bit about that early stage.
Right. So I left TRUSTe, or now it's called TRUSTe, in 2012, and was still on the board. I was doing different board work and was advising in some accelerators, including one called Women's Startup Lab. And I was invited to do a talk, much like I'm doing today, and mentor or talk to some of the applicants. And one of the gals was from Santa Fe, so I really wanted to talk to her. And she had started a company doing baby gear rental in Santa Fe, but also had the idea of empowering moms in other markets. And at that stage was basically in 2 markets. And I spent some time with her, and we decided to form the company and relaunch it, basically reincorporate it. And we did that in May of 2016. And at that point, I put some of my own money in because I wanted to see, I knew I needed to demonstrate not just to myself, but to potential investors, can this scale? Is there demand? And honestly, could we get insurance? Because we can't insure this. It's a category that's potentially litigious.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we started to open up markets, there was demand.
Wow.
So we really did tap into something that people cared about. And we were able to recruit some really good quality providers early on in some big markets. One of them is Los Angeles. And one of the things I think I brought to the table in terms of thinking about it is we have more than one provider in any given market. So in the Los Angeles area or Dallas area, we probably have a half dozen to a dozen providers.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that if we were going to invest marketing dollars and build a brand, we couldn't rely on just one person. And also, everybody would have different kinds of gear. Some places really want high-end gear, up a baby, for those in your audience who know all these brands, versus Graco. I mean, there's just different price points, different brand preferences. A lot of people want car seats just like the one they have at home.
Mm.
So we really built this by having more than one person in most markets. And that's worked out well to build a brand as well.
Wow. So I'm curious, just to clarify in terms of the customer experience, then, are the quality providers bringing their own equipment, as in just like Uber drivers have their own cars?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So they might start out
from an e-commerce standpoint, when it's listed on the website, they are listing their own equipment on their pages as a quality provider?
Yes. Yes. Now, they might have started with their own strollers and things like that, but most of them are building up inventory, and they have, multiple cribs, and these cribs fold down and have wheels, right? Multiple car seats, multiple strollers, different kinds of toy boxes. Some of them even rent pet gear and yoga gear, and some even blenders for whatever families might want. And it's been fun over the years. They've done things like for Easter, decorate a yard for an Easter egg hunt. And some of them will even put up Christmas trees and decorate them as well.
Wow. So how do you determine pricing on all of this?
So they pretty much determine the pricing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So they determine the pricing, and we're fairly transparent so they can see what other people are pricing in different parts of the country or even in their own region. And then they can see what works, and we give them the tools to give discounts for longer term stays and things like that.
Wow, that's fantastic. So really, if I was a quality provider, the reason I should be part of this is there's a trusted brand, a really visible brand. It's providing me with lead generation without me having to do anything. It's providing me with...
Oh, we ask you to learn how to do some local marketing.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But broadly speaking, I'm still getting the brand effect of getting the opportunities, and then the transaction capabilities and the insurance protection.
Right. So we also train them. So we train them on how to clean the gear, how to set it up, how to make sure nothing's on the recall list. Mm-hmm. Certainly if something comes onto a recall list, we get it off the platform. We train them on how to market their business locally, especially. And we give them, we have a Facebook community that they all belong to. And while we give tips and celebrate wins and anniversaries and things like that, they also rely on each other to solve problems, or to, maybe not a problem, but hey, I have a big family, they have a 3-year-old, what toys should I put in the toy box? That kind of, I would say there's been some skepticism that we could keep up over all these markets, the quality and so on, but we have. Our customers give us an 84 net promoter score.
Wow.
Which is, right? World class, really good. Right. And they're proud of that, and we're proud of that. And we get high marks on cleanliness and safety and customer service. Now, recently, when in March, we bought a baby gear cleaning business, and we've launched that in 100 markets. So now, for local families, we clean those very gross, and I'm sure many of your audience will know how gross car seats get. So we clean car seats and strollers and high chairs and things like that for families.
So that's completely independent of even the rental.
Yeah. So of course, anytime people rent gear, it's clean.
Yeah.
But separately, because I have this network of 650 providers who already, so we train them on how to do the deep clean, let's say, call it the detail of the car seat, and how to take off the straps and put it back together again and check things and wash all the soft parts and all of that. So that was a good timely pivot during coronavirus. Right. I can tell you coronavirus has been difficult.
How has it affected the business, not just for BabyQuip, but also the quality providers?
Yeah, no, it was really tough. In March of this year, our episode on Shark Tank aired on March 6th. And typically that would have been a fantastic time because we'd be going into the Easter holidays and spring break and times where families traveled. And, I had a party on March 6th at my house to watch Shark Tank, but that was the last party anybody I know went to. So it was rough. I mean, things went down. We had loads of cancellations through March, very low orders in April. We went ahead and bought the cleaning business, got that launched in June. By the summer, some families were traveling. And, from a marketing perspective, we could not say, hey, ignore the pandemic and go travel. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So things were looking up, and we're still having a fair bit of business in November and December, but much lower than I had expected and much lower than last year. And that being said, my team has kept positive. We kept up our social media and our other kind of outreach. And our community, it's been difficult. We certainly did lose some people, but most of them are hanging in there because we all believe, and I think research will show that when this pandemic is over, family travel is going to be back on and big because families want to make memories and they want to be with their other family members. And grandparents are desperate to see their grandchildren. Yeah. So we're going to be there to help.
Yeah, just, ready for the resurgence when that happens.
Yeah.
One of the things that your business is really doing is not just empowering families to have easier, lives and make memories, but also empowering moms and women to be independent business owners.
What if you could pinpoint the invisible ceilings limiting your success? Imagine having clarity on your strengths and barriers so you can take action and gain unstoppable momentum to advance as a future-ready leader. Well, that's exactly what the Beyond Barriers quiz will help you discover. You'll get your personalized score based on the 25 essential elements proven to accelerate success in the digital age, so you can understand what's holding you back and where to focus your efforts. The Beyond Barriers quiz is completely free and takes just a few minutes. Go to iambeyondbarriers.com/quiz and take the quiz today.
Tell us a little bit more about that part of it, the independent business owner, or separate from just, being part of the Quip network. What are you learning that, what draws them in? What do they struggle with? What are the things that perhaps may not be directly connected to BabyQuip's services or products, but that in order to empower them, you've had to help them develop in?
Well, first of all, I think there is a real need for, and maybe it's been around for a long time, looking back at Tupperware or Mary Kay or some of these iconic brands, but moms want to have a little extra money, especially, and I would say about 40% of our network are stay-at-home moms doing this as a side hustle. Some are also working full-time, part-time. We do have some retired couples, so this is something for them to make some extra money. But making extra money, I think, is a side hustle, a gig job is a very American thing, and people are looking for the right one.
Mm-hmm.
We found that a lot of our community are, when they have degrees, many graduate degrees, and a lot of them come from sales or marketing background. So this kind of appeals to them, right?
Right.
I think the things that what I've heard from the community is they came to make the extra money, and they're staying because they're part of the community and they're part of an experience. And we work hard to make sure that they're getting, like, we have a speaker series of other entrepreneurs or other people to come in. And we had Randy Zuckerberg, one of our advisors, do a talk on how to set up your social media.
Wow.
I mean, that was really thrilling to them, you know. I think they have learned a lot on social media, on how to get their name out there, how to use Twitter, Facebook, and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think they learn a lot about how to manage a business. And, you know, at the beginning, we didn't have inventory control. Now we do. Mm-hmm. But how to manage their inventory remains a pretty big issue. Mm-hmm. I don't think we help them that much, but they do work on how to set up their P&L, how to account for things, how to write things off, what are the tax laws. I could say that is probably challenging. It's challenging for everybody.
Right. Wow. But that's incredible. I mean, it's really about, you know, creating this environment of entrepreneurship at the grassroots level. And
yeah, I mean, I love the community, and they love each other. They support each other. We had a holiday party a week ago, and that was a lot of fun. So it's pretty great. That's what gives me joy every day.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Well, I guess both sides. I mean, I hear from the providers how much that this has enriched their lives, and then I hear from parents who, you know, basically say we saved the vacation.
I'm sure, as well as all the other passengers that are also equally impacted by them. I want to get your perspective on female entrepreneurs that are at that early stages where they may have this idea that they really believe in, but perhaps they haven't yet found an eager audience in others. And, there's that thin line between absolute belief and that's, in your vision versus perhaps there's room for improvement, but you're not listening to anyone. How might you guide someone who's kind of trying to figure out their path through that? Do I listen to everyone who's being a naysayer, or do I take their feedback and improve this?
I think you almost always have to listen to everybody, but have the conviction to decide for yourself. Mm. I mean, there's almost always going to be naysayers, but there are probably going to be some people who are just giving some good advice. Try and take it all in. Mm. I think what's, like I expressed about BabyQuip, that first summer, mm-hmm. I had particular milestones. I wanted to see if we could meet them. If we could meet them, then I thought, and I was willing to put my own money and time into it. And if you have the conviction, you got to do that too.
Right.
If you can, and set up the milestones to reaffirm or learn or tell you maybe now's not the time or so on. Mm-hmm. So I would talk to as many people as you can, but I would also try and formulate some milestones to make sure you know what you're doing. I'm surprised how often I see young entrepreneurs, not just women, not look at the competitive set, not really consider who their target market is deeply, so it can't be, women just like me, like, let's be specific, certain ages, life stage, what have you. Mm-hmm. I don't know that a lot of startups, especially women, they start up as LLCs, small businesses, and then it becomes more difficult for them to get capital, so do the things that you need to do at the beginning, incorporate, right? Try and find some good advisors. And I am now of the opinion, and I do a little bit of investing, a little less now. But I like to see my startup founders go through an accelerator of some kind. There are so many. I think all of, certainly there's Y Combinator and, tech, there's a bunch. It doesn't have to be the top accelerators, a local accelerator, because that will give some help in terms of helping you not just define your product and key attributes, but also your pitch deck, and give you some experience pitching to potential investors. Not everybody wants to do that, but I think nowadays that is an important step, and it's much easier than going and getting an MBA. A lot cheaper.
Absolutely. So speaking of pitching and working with investors, what is the biggest thing you yourself have learned, going from a time when that was not something you pursued or were afraid you wouldn't get the money, to then doing that, but also being an investor yourself? What are the most important things to keep in mind, especially as a female entrepreneur?
Yeah. For TRUSTe, I raised well over $10 million and helped raise second round. And for BabyQuip, I raised $4.5 million. It is never easy. Okay. It is a slog. I think you've got to really sing the things that are powerful in your story, and be very confident about those things. And I think you've got to identify who are the right kind of investors and cultivate them. I think you've got to be good about addressing objections. And for women entrepreneurs, many of us have products that are aimed at the family market or the female market, and we've got to embrace that. We've got to own it and not apologize for it. It is still really, really hard. There are not enough wealthy women or women with big startup wins that are starting VC companies. One of the things that I sadly have to tell many female entrepreneurs who seek my advice, that there are not enough accelerators or women's funds, and that they are not the panacea. You have got to work and establish relationships with men and impress upon them the benefits of your solution or your product or whatever for the female market. They do know that women control the purse string in many households, and that's issues. But it's been a slog. And I'd say only in the last few years are we seeing big improvements in funding for female med tech and female and family-oriented services.
So there's a lot of systemic challenges and cultural things and social issues that'll take time. There's no overnight panacea to that. But what is within our control, what would you say to someone who, about saying this is the part you got to own and completely take charge of?
Yeah. So, they've got to create a big vision that I think other people can get behind. Show that it's a big market, show that you've got a big solution. Women are much more practical. We put together business plans that take the business to X million dollars, not X million times 10. And that's what the guys do. We've got to have much more confident attitude about what we're doing. I'll give you a couple of examples. I've advised female founders, and one of them, I love her dearly. She's great. She sent this long email to her advisors and board members. And in the middle of it, she said, "Oh, by the way, we have a new name." Okay. And I was like, "Girlfriend, you buried the lead." And when you think about writing an email like that, think about what a guy would do. And a guy never writes 5 paragraphs. Right?
No.
I mean, maybe I'm simplifying, but, we feel compulsion to explain ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that might be good. And it's good that we've taken the time to think through why we're making certain decisions and what supports it and so on. It can come off as insecure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Absolutely. So more than a couple of times I've said to some of my advisees, when they're facing an issue, ask yourself, what would a guy do? And, you might get a different answer. That might be a good one. I'm not saying the guys are always right. I'm just saying sometimes we need to have a different framework.
Right. Sometimes it's just how we show up that maybe takes away opportunity or gives us some.
Let's get confident and maybe a little cocky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that women do is they don't get enough support.
Mm.
And that's one of the things I learned at Match. I didn't have enough support at home. I didn't have enough support overall. We want to be so careful with other people's money, but then we don't hire that marketing person or use that tool that might save us time, or we don't hire the best person because we want to save some money, but in the end you're losing.
Right. Yeah. That's great advice. Let's talk about your vision for BabyQuip looking forward. What is the big vision that you can share with us?
Well, I hate to say I have to get out of this pandemic.
Don't we all?
I think that we are the baby gear experts, and we have a wonderful opportunity both with the rental and the cleaning business to own the space, and in a different way than any brand can own it. So own it for the benefit of parents. What are they looking for? What do they need? How can we help them? We're going through a big change. Millennials and I guess Gen Zers are the parents now. Mm-hmm. They're very comfortable with renting stuff. They're very comfortable with gig economy. They very much want to travel and explore the world. So how can we help them do that in the most convenient and potentially economical ways?
I love that. Well, we're excited to see the growth of BabyQuip and navigating even through this turbulence. We have no doubt you'll come through it and continue to empower families, parents, and moms everywhere. I want to end with one last question because I have to go back to your superpower of being a brand builder. For those out there that are wanting to build brands, what questions should they ask themselves?
So probably a series of questions, but basically, what part of the brain do you want this brand to inhabit? Okay. What is the space? What is the positioning? What is it that you want people to think when they think about brand? And brands are also very much about trust. So where can you improve the trust in whatever brand that you're making? And communicate that. And then I think the other one is, who is your target? Really being clear, as I mentioned earlier, on who is this brand for? So who is this brand for? Where is it going to live in their brain or their mindscape, their brandscape? And how can you make your brand the most trusted?
I love it. Well, this is phenomenal guidance to everyone out there. But thank you so much for being on the show and to share your story, all the lessons learned, and also how you're navigating through this year's crisis as a courageous leader. I know so many people are struggling and will find wisdom, hope in what you've shared. So thank you so much for being on the show. It was great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Barriers podcast. There are thousands of podcasts out there, and we are so grateful that you've chosen to listen to ours. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and tell a friend about it. And subscribe to get new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Visit IamBeyondBarriers.com, where you'll find show notes, links, and the best way to connect with our guests. See you next episode.